So everyone is panicking because the world feels like a giant powder keg right now, and honestly, same. And today we're going to go over 5 reasons why we might just be going into World War III. We've got wars popping off in the Middle East that feel like they're one bad day away from a regional inferno, a grinding stalemate in Europe that seems to have no off switch, and a domestic political scene in the US that looks less like a functioning government and more like a high-stakes reality show starring Donald Trump and a cast of thousands. We're all sitting here scrolling through our feeds, eyes wide, asking the same question. Is World War III starting? It's a valid question. For the first time in decades, the peace through strength vibe feels more like chaos through confusion. We're living through what might be the most successful how to lose friends and alienate people operation in geopolitical history. The first reason we're staring down the barrel of a global conflict is the US policy in the Middle East, which has basically been the geopolitical equivalent of trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun filled with premium unleaded gasoline. For years, Washington has tried to pull off an impossible balancing act, offering ironclad support for Israel while simultaneously trying to contain Iran without actually getting its hands dirty. It's like trying to keep 2 pit bulls from tearing each other apart while you're standing in the middle holding a giant ribeye steak. The disastrous policy here is the total lack of a clear endgame. The US vacillates between maximum pressure on Tehran and strategic patience, which Iran has interpreted as do whatever you want as long as you use proxies. Now, Iran is the final boss of the region, funding a ring of fire from Hezbollah to the Houthis, and the US is stuck in a reactive loop. Every time a drone hits a container ship in the Red Sea or a missile barrage lights up the night sky over Tel Aviv, the world holds its breath to see if the US will finally get pulled into the mosh pit. By failing to either fully commit to a diplomatic solution or a decisive deterrent, the US has created a vacuum where a single wrong click by a local commander could spark a regional war that drags in every major power on Earth. Reason number 2 is the situation in Ukraine, which has become a giant laboratory for Western weapons and a meat grinder for Russian ambitions. If World War I was started by an assassination and World War II by a blitzkrieg, World War III is currently being financed via a subscription service. The US wants to bleed Russia dry without actually entering the fight, but in doing so, it has backed Vladimir Putin into a corner where he feels he has nothing to lose. By providing the intelligence, the tanks, the long-range missiles, and the cash to keep the Ukrainian government's lights on, the US has effectively become a combatant in all but name. We're playing a high-stakes game of chicken with a nuclear-armed bear while telling the American public that this isn't our war. The lack of an exit ramp is the real danger. We've entered a forever war scenario again, but this time the enemy isn't a cave-dwelling insurgent group. It's a superpower with a massive nuclear arsenal and a very long memory. Then we have the third reason, the absolute disaster that is US immigration policy. Now, regardless of where you sit on the aisle, the US southern border has become the focal point of a massive internal identity crisis that is actively eroding the country's ability to project power abroad. It's the ultimate distraction policy. While the US tries to act like the leader of the free world, its own border has become a 24/7 news cycle of chaos. The disastrous part of this policy is the state of permanent limbo. By failing to secure the border or create a functional legal system, the US has fueled a narrative of invasion and collapse that is a goldmine for foreign adversaries. The fourth reason is the most unhinged, the sheer soul-crushing polarization of American politics and the Trump factor. The US policy toward its own democracy has become a disaster of epic proportions. We've reached a point where half the country thinks the other half is a literal threat to human existence, and that kind of internal decay is a beacon for global conflict. Trump isn't just a political figure, he's a giant Rorschach test for global stability. The disastrous policy here is the normalization of instability. The US has basically told its allies, hey, our entire global strategy, our treaties, and our support might just disappear every 4 years depending on who wins a few counties in the Midwest. Imagine being an ally and realizing your defense strategy depends on whether or not a guy in a Make America Great Again hat decides he's bored with NATO this week. This internal instability is a gift to our enemies. They don't need to start a world war to defeat America. They just need to wait for the next election cycle to finish the job. Finally, we have the big boss fight, China. The US policy toward the Red Dragon has been a masterclass in mixed signals and delayed reactions. We rely on them for everything from your iPhone to the antibiotics in your medicine cabinet, yet we're also trying to circle them with military bases and tell them they can't have Taiwan. It's like being in a committed, codependent relationship with someone you're also trying to sue for everything they've got. The disastrous policy here is strategic ambiguity that has become more ambiguous and less strategic. China is watching the US drain its stockpiles of missiles in the desert and thinking, interesting, every $1 billion we send elsewhere is $1 billion we aren't using to fix our aging navy or harden our cyber defenses. Look, I'm not saying we're all going to be living in a Fallout game by next Tuesday. This isn't about being a doomer, it's about a reality check. World War III isn't usually a movie-style event where someone just presses a big red button out of nowhere. It's the final result of a long chain of unfortunate events and disastrous policies that make war seem like the only option left on the table. The US has spent decades acting like the rules of history, but history is a patient teacher, and the bill is coming due. We've got a Middle East policy that's failing, a European war with no end, a border that's a political football, and an internal division that's tearing the social fabric apart. Is World War III starting? Maybe not this second. But if we keep running the same playbooks and pretending that vibes can fix deep structural failures, we might just find ourselves in a conflict we didn't plan for.